I want to talk about a balanced life. I believe that character and integrity do count big time. Oh, I know the world of today frequently talks about the fact that, your personal life doesn't really matter as long as your professional life is okay, as long as you're doing your job, and that is pure baloney. I was amused a few years ago when two of our presidential candidates were debating family values. And they never could determine what family values were. And the reason is very simple. There's no such thing as family values. They're life values. When I talk about life values, you see, the same person at home is going to go to work, and the same person that went to work is going to come back home. And you will discover, as I have, as I analyzed it very carefully, I discovered that if you have the qualities to be a good husband or wife or a good mom or a good dad, those same character qualities will make you a good executive or a successful salesperson, wherever, because those qualities are life's qualities. Now, when I talk about things as being relative, I know you've heard people say, well, everything is relative. Let me tell you something, folks. There's not a business person in this room today who would deliberately hire a treasurer or a CPA who admitted that he or she was just relatively honest. Isn't that true? Character really does count. When I get home and see the redhead, now some of you know that when I talk about my wife, I always call her the redhead. She's a decided redhead. I mean, one day she just decided that she was going to be a redhead. She's an excited redhead. She's been inducted into the MasterCard Hall of Fame. And actually, she just bought a little car that gives her 19 miles to the gallon. Now, when I talk about the redhead, I always call her the redhead. When I'm talking to her, it's Sugar Baby. And her name is Jean. And after 55 years of marriage, I got to tell you, we're more in love by far than we've ever been. By far. We talk more, we do more things together than we ever have done before. As I tell people, I've only been married once, but I married 23 women when I married her. I don't have a clue which one I'm going to wake up with tomorrow morning. I really don't. But so far, I love them all. I mean, it's worked out really good. Now, when I get home, actually, I don't get home until the day after tomorrow. When I get home, I guarantee you she's not going to look at me and say, now, honey, tell me the truth. Were you relatively faithful to me while you were gone? See, some things are right, some things are wrong, and we need to understand that character really does count. Integrity is one of the great freers of life. With integrity, you do the right thing, and that means you have no guilt feelings. With integrity, you have nothing to fear because you have nothing to hide. Now think about it. With fear and guilt removed from your shoulders, doesn't it just make sense? You can fly higher, faster, further, and do more in the process. You have your freedom. That's what it's all about. Integrity really does matter. Emerson said, ability without honor has no value. And he also said, if you would lift me up, you must be on higher ground. Now, I believe he's absolutely 100% right on that. There's no question in my mind on that one. Laurel Cutter said that values determine behavior. Behavior determines reputation. Reputation determines advantages. A number of years ago, I bought a new Cadillac. I bought it from the third dealership I went to look at Cadillacs. That was the car I wanted at that particular time. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, well, what you ought to do is you ought to call Chuck Bellis at Roger Meyer Cadillac because he's been there a long time, and whatever Chuck tells you, you can absolutely depend on. I drove in to see Chuck Bellis. And the story is rather fascinating, but the bottom line is less than 20 minutes, we made a deal. And the reason we were able to do that in 20 minutes was because Chuck Bellis had been working on me for over 20 years. Now, wait a minute. You said you just met him and never... That's right. What do you mean he'd been working on you over 20 years? 23 years earlier, he had gone to work at that Cadillac dealership with this objective in mind. I'll spend the rest of my career right here. In order for that to happen, I've got to play it right off the top of the deck. My friend had said, whatever Chuck Bellis tells you, you can absolutely depend on it. I went to the other dealerships to look at a Cadillac. I went to see Chuck Bellis to buy a Cadillac. Reputation based on a character, that's what makes the difference. Now, if we're going to thrive in any economy, and I was one of those real fortunate human beings. I was born in L.A., that's Lower Alabama. And I was raised in Yazoo City, Mississippi. Now, I understand there are a lot of folks go around the country trying to impress people by claiming to be from Yazoo City, but I really am. Yazoo City is a spectacular place. It's produced a lot of incredible people, and people often ask me, how'd they do it? Very simple. They had a great superintendent of education and some fabulous preachers who faithfully preached the Word of God. I'm the 10th of 12 children. I asked my mom one time, I said, Mom, why so many? And she said, well, son, where do you think I should have stopped? Well, I sure didn't think after number 9. Now you can absolutely count on that. My dad died when I was 5. There were 8 of us still at home, 6 of us too young to work. But my mother had incredible wisdom and a tremendous faith. We survived because of her and the fact that we had a big garden and 3 milk cows. In Yazoo City, I noticed some things, though. There in the heart of the Depression, this was in the 30s, I noticed there were some people in those difficult times that wore nice clothes, drove nice cars, lived in nice houses, took nice trips, even played golf at the country club. You know what I've noticed in every decade of my life since then? I've noticed that there are a lot of people who pay absolutely no attention to the media. You know, the media has accurately predicted 28 of the last 2 recessions. They don't pay any attention to them. People there didn't. I've noticed in every decade of my life that the economy out there doesn't amount to a hill of beans to them because they got it right here between their ears. Now, I don't want to be negative anyway, but I must go ahead and tell you, I'll be like the little boy that came home from school one day and said, Dad, I'm afraid I flunked that arithmetic test. His dad said, son, that's negative, be positive. He said, Dad, I'm positive I flunked that arithmetic test. Now, I'm going to be positive when I say there's not a whole lot you individually can do about the national economy. But, oh, there is so much you can do about your personal economy.